It was founded on February 25th, 1791. The Bank of the United States was a central bank, meaning that it managed the federal currency, money supply, and the interest rates. And I want to tell you guys a little bit about what was happening in the U.S. during this time. During this time, the U.S.'s currency was going down. The money was not worth what it should have been, and people were in debt. The whole country was basically in debt. Hamilton wanted the bank. Hamilton helped make the bank back, basically. He believed that a central bank was necessary to stabilize and improve the nation's credit. He believed that it helped lower national debt through taxes, and that nowhere in the Constitution does it say that there cannot be a national bank. George Washington, you guys know. No one loved George Washington. He agreed with Hamilton no matter what. I have a quote here from Hamilton that he used when he was debating with Jefferson for the bank, and it says, "The tendency of a national bank is to increase public and private credit. The former gives power to the state for the protection of its rights and interests, and the latter facilitates and extends operations of commerce amongst the individuals." Basically, this is just saying the bank is good. It helps people. It will help the country get back on track. When Jefferson and Hamilton were debating, they literally had a debate against this. Jefferson kept saying that it was necessary, that Hamilton kept saying that it was necessary for the bank to be in place, that it was, basically, I'm repeating myself now, but this is the biggest point, that it would help the country get back on track. It would help. Yay, that's why we're broke. Alright, hello. If you guys don't know me, my name is Melissa.
Okay, Melissa.
Hi. Okay, so let's think about it for a second. Was the first bank in the United States constitutional, or was it not constitutional? Many people have misconceptions about this topic. So before I state the obvious, let's define what the first bank was. The first bank in the United States was a central bank. It was chartered for a term of 20 years, made by the United States Congress on February 25th, 1791. The establishment of the bank was included in a three-part expansion of federal fiscal and monetary power. Basically, the war left us in debt. Some states became very bankrupt. I mean, we needed a solution, but did we really need one unified currency? This Bank of the United States was deeded. It was built while Philadelphia was still the nation's capital. The general reason for this position. The bill for establishing a national bank undertakes, among other things. Like most of the 7 members of Congress, neither Secretary of State Thomas Jefferson nor Representative James Madison had any particular interest in this. Two of Hamilton's tripartite recommendations. Jefferson believed that the centralization of power took away from local banks and was dangerous to a sound monetary system. It was mostly to the benefit of business interests in the commercial north, not Southern agricultural interests. It argued that the right to own property would be infringed by these proposals. Furthermore, they contended that the creation of such a bank violated the Constitution, which specifically stated that Congress was to regulate weights and measures and issue money. Establishment of the bank also raised early question of constitutionally in the new government. To end my speech, I'll end with a quote by Jefferson. "The central bank is an institution of the most deadly hostility existing against the principles and the form of our Constitution. I am an enemy to all banks discounting bills or notes for anything but coin. If the American people allow private banks to control the issuance of their currency, first by inflation and then by deflation, the banks and corporations that will grow up around them will deprive the people of their property until their children will wake up homeless on the continent their fathers conquered." Thank you. Woo!
I'm Matt. I'm on the pro side. First of all, yeah, I said earlier the bank was necessary. Even in the Constitution, there was a clause added known as a necessary and proper clause. It says, The Congress shall have power to borrow money on the credit of the United States to regulate commerce with foreign nations, among the several states, and with the Indian tribes. To make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers, and all other powers vested by this Constitution in the government of the U.S. or in any department or officer thereof. Basically saying they have the right to create something that would essentially help the United States. Even this same way of how Jefferson expanded the United States with the Louisiana Purchase, saying how this would help further helping the United States grow, the economy get better. In McCulloch versus Maryland, even Chief Justice Marshall said the Congress has the power to incorporate a bank into the United States. When the Constitution was first documented, it was made to be adapted. Founding fathers knew that it wasn't perfect, and it was necessary that things would have to be adapted to how commerce would expand and how the United States would expand as well. Even the paper money, as said before, it was losing its value. It was inflating, and the paper money that was being printed by the bank itself, it was urgently needed so we can get the United States back on track. And yeah.
Well, you're doubting me. So. Okay, hi guys. My name is Miranda.
Hi, Miranda.
Hi, Michelle. I hope you guys are enjoying your cookies. I'm sure EJ has a few left if you guys would like to grab some before he throws it away.
Right.
I'm pretty sure no one wants chocolate chip cookies to be thrown away. Okay. So, Thomas Jefferson and Andrew Jackson were opposed to the National Bank. Before President Jackson took office, there was a National Bank, which was a private bank in which the government owned 20% of the shares that was chartered every 20 years. This bank was responsible for setting interest rates and coining money. Jefferson was opposed to a national charter bank because he thought it gave too much power to one company, and that each state should be responsible for their own banking. He was also afraid that foreign investment would become too much and that could potentially lead the U.S. into a hostile takeover. Jackson also shared his view along with Jefferson's disdain for paper currency. When he came into office, he refused to charter the National Bank, which forced banking to be in the hands of the states. It was during this period that banking was decentralized. Okay. I'm going to state some of Jefferson's opinions from the Constitution. Consider the foundation of the Constitution as laid on this ground, that all powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution nor prohibited by the states are reserved to the states or to the people. The 12th Amendment. To take a single step beyond the boundaries thus specially drawn around the powers of Congress is to take a possession of a boundless field of power, no longer susceptible of any definition. Okay. To borrow money. But this bill neither borrows money nor insures the borrowing it. The bank will just be as free as any other money holders to lend or to not lend their money to the public. The operation proposed in the bill first to lend them $2 million and then to borrow them back again could not change the nature of the latter act, which will still be a payment and not a loan. Call it by what you please. To lay taxes to provide for the general welfare of the United States. That is to say, to lay taxes for the purpose of providing for the general welfare. For the laying of taxes is the power of the general welfare, the purpose for which the power is to be exercised. They are to not lay taxes for any purpose they please, but only to pay the debt or provide for the welfare of the Union. In like manner, they are not to do anything they please to provide for the general welfare, but only to lay taxes for that purpose. To consider the latter phrase, not as describing the purpose of the first, but as giving a distinct and independent power to any act they please, which might be for the good of the Union, would render all the preceding and subsequent enumerations of power completely useless. Kind of gets me sometimes, it's really powerful. Now, you might ask, if Jefferson was opposed to the National Bank, why didn't he veto the bill? 2 reasons. 1, granting Congress any power not explicitly granted by the Constitution will remove all limits on its power other than what Congress itself believes to be the good of the nation. 2, Jefferson was a strict constructionist. He believed that Congress could exercise no power not specifically and explicitly mentioned in the Constitution. Since this Constitution nowhere mentions a bank, he believes any law establishing a bank to be unconstitutional. And as Secretary of State in Washington's administration, Jefferson could not veto the national bank. He argued against it, yes, and debated Alexander Hamilton about its constitutionality, but he was in no position to veto anything. And I use my time to the chair.
Was constitutional. Because, for one, like they said, Jefferson, he complained, he didn't have power, he couldn't do anything. But Hamilton, now he had a plan. He took from England, their successful bank at the time, and decided that America needed one too. Since, they said that the local banks would take away from the local banks, but obviously they weren't doing anything because the money in America was inflated. And if they had a place to put it all and to put out a national currency, well, that would help. Also, the Constitution may not specifically say, oh, well, we can have a national bank, but the Constitution doesn't bring up a lot of things. If we didn't do the Louisiana Purchase, which that wasn't constitutional either, we would still be on the East Coast with Jersey. Nobody wants that. And plus, in Part 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, it says the Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. This bank was for the general good. It was going to help everyone. But the question you need to take into account is, we're not debating, was the bank good? Was it bad? It doesn't matter. Was it constitutional or not? And based on my evidence and by debunking their claims, it was constitutional. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
I would love to be.
Okay. Okay. Hi, I'm Mariah, and I am here to explain to you why my opponents are wrong. And I have quite a few points actually. Becky stated that there's nowhere in the Constitution that says that the government can't, make a bank or take the Constitution and loosely interpret it loosely. But at the same time that it doesn't state that you can't do something. It doesn't say that you can. So that argument is, although it is an argument, it is an argument that can be flipped very easily, and it's kind of like, arguing with yourself on the same issue. My next point is something else that Becky said, which said that that the reason they did it was because that the whole country was in debt, basically. And yes, the country was in debt, but it was on a state-to-state basis. Virginia, for example, was not really that much in debt, which is why they were actually upset that they had to share the debt with the entire country, which is why they shouldn't have passed the U.S. Bank, because then every single state could deal with their own individual economic issues. My next point is what Sarah said, and I quote, that the Louisiana Purchase was not unconstitutional either, which means she agrees that it wasn't constitutional, but that it probably should have passed. My last point is what Matt was saying when he kept saying about the necessity that it was necessary, that we needed it. And to me, the word necessary means needful, requisite, useful, conductive, absolutely indispensable. A bank in the United States was not indispensable. You did not absolutely need it for the entire nation's issues, because it was a state-to-state issue. It was not something that would have, completely make or break the country. So please tell me how a bank centralized by the entire government, a bank that now the government controls and is given an almost monopoly-like power over the people who don't really need it, and does not state in its constitution that it's necessary. I yield my time.